Yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I would rather not comment on what was just said about the fax machines, because I think that's something where we're doing trade-ins rather than selling fax machines. I'm really happy to be here, and what I'm really impressed by is that there are so many people from across different generations, including the young generation, who are dealing with societally relevant questions and also questions related to technology. And there are at least 3 important convictions that connect us. My ministry, the government, and also me personally. First, the conviction that digitization is one of the most decisive topics and questions of the future. Second, that digitization requires debate and discourse, including discourse and conversation with society, because only if digitization is accepted across society, only then can it succeed. And third, what also unites us is the conviction that successful digitization needs to be value-based and inclusive, and it makes society more modern, better, and freer because it can be more independent. Ladies and gentlemen, considering so many shared values, ambitions, and goals, I'm also very thankful to be here today. You invited me, and I want to respond immediately with a counter-invitation. Let's enter a constructive dialogue and a quick and efficient implementation to design the digital future of our country, of Germany, and of the entirety of Europe. That also needs you. We also requires you, the generations X, Y, and Z, but also all other generations in Germany, because digitization needs to be inclusive. So yeah, thank you very much for the invite and for the conversations and exchanges today. So now we have a Ministry for Digitization with the beautiful name Federal Ministry for Digital Affairs, Digitization and State Modernization. And many have said in the last few days, finally, they've told me, these are people that already live very digital lives. But when they interact with the government, suddenly they're faced with paper and pen again. That's also something that I heard from companies that are really pushing down the gas pedal when it comes to digitization and modernization, but often have to wait for too long to get permits from the government. That's also something that I heard from many young people who want to be founders or who already are founders and who are trying to decide if our country offers the right perspective and the right environment for that. Or whether founding companies around topics like the internet and AI, if those companies aren't better founded elsewhere. All of these things indicate to me that it's exactly the right time for a digital ministry, for a government that really hits the gas pedal for topics like this, for a government that can also support digitization within companies as a customer. And I'm convinced that founding this ministry at this very time is more than a simple administrative act. It's more about creating more than just creating a new ministry. It's a decision in the interest of our country's future. It's for a decision for a successful future Germany. It's about connecting with our partners in Europe and also connecting with the world, including the world in the global south. Of course, I also heard voices that asked, is the government the right player to push for successful digitization? Should we rely on or trust the state of all actors? Our state is founded on values, the values of freedom, the rule of law, of justice and equality, of openness, of market, of social market capitalism, and of public support. But I also hear many doubts and questions. Personally, I can also understand other perspectives and good at empathizing with other perspectives. And so I would like to offer this again. Let's discuss digitization together, and let's also implement it together. My ministry considers itself an enabler and an entity that pushes for and moves forward a digital future that in the end has to be implemented by companies and especially people in this country. This is about digital moves forward, digital sovereignty, and digital business models that can be a boost for economic growth. Yes, like also growth, but because it is primarily about the people who can create work in this area, people who can find work in this area, and who can live a good life in a digital country. Because one thing that I'm sure we all notice, this country needs a strong boost, at least economically. Made in Germany is something that made us successful for a very long time, that enabled a good life for people. It supported democracy. Because we all notice, we can all feel that for the acceptance of democracy, it's important that people can realize themselves, that they can use their talents, that they can live their life with freedom and with freedoms in a respectful, shared society where discourse is possible, respectful discourse is possible. But if opportunities for work disappear, if personal perspectives disappear, then trust in the economy and this country disappears. Then they have it a lot easier who just do politics with slogans. And that's what we don't want. And so I think we agree that we need a boost for a strong and big step forward, and digitization can be a strong driver for that. So after years of made in Germany, we need digital next Germany within a digital Europe, a networked work world, and based on a non-negotiable basis of shared values. And I think in that case, if that happens, digitization will be an important part, foundation for freedom and democracy. And just for today, I want to briefly tell you which 3 topics my ministry and I will focus on. First, that's the digital state. Less paperwork, less bureaucracy, and what remains will be faster, at the very least, a bureaucracy that is able to offer better services to citizens because it has the digital prerequisites for that. For this, we are creating the so-called Germany stack. We define this as a basic IT infrastructure with certain business components, including cloud and IT providers that will be built once and not 20 times, including clearly defined APIs and connections, also based on open source. For one part of the digital state is that every individual receives a digital identity, a digital wallet that includes many things such as the driver's license, national ID. This is a kind of digitization that reaches people, that makes people's lives easier and creates acceptance. And so again, I want to reiterate my invitation. Let's discuss this. I'm happy to discuss that immediately after my speech. And I'm already having conversations with my colleagues in other European countries. For example, last week I spoke to Clara Chapas, my French colleague, to talk about our shared goal in Europe is very clear: a European EID that is safe, that you could trustworthy, and that when it comes. And that is accepted by the people, the government, and private companies. Another area where Europe needs to become more sovereign is digital payment. 80% of digital payments in Europe are running via non-EU companies. So extremely sensitive payment data that can tell you a lot about those customers leave our legal space daily. Why? Do we want that? Do people really want that? We urgently need alternative options that work and that are accepted and find acceptance, that give people the feeling of being safe. And our goal as Digital Ministry is to create the requirements for that interoperability with the wallet, connectivity, and ability to connect with companies, and a trustworthy infrastructure according to highest standards of safety. Another thing that's important, and that's where we get to this discussion that you support so much, that we walk this walk with the citizens, that we explain and listen. Successful digitization is easy, transparent, and inclusive and accessible. And that requires a lot of communication about the risks, but also about the chances and opportunities. Risks and opportunities are both sides of the same digital coin. And this country needs a positive vision and narrative for the future again. That's is another task for my ministry, and I invite all of you to contribute to this positive, optimistic future narrative of the future. The second part of my agenda, digital infrastructure. Data must flow so we can communicate, so we are connected, so we can work, so companies can design the future. That requires data centers. It needs fiber optic cables. It needs 5G across the country a lot faster than to date. It requires digital infrastructure, like a European digital infrastructure. And I'm sure you all agree with me that we need to be more independent of non-European providers when it comes to cloud providers, AI, or digital payment. For now, right now, more than 75% of European cloud data are in the hands of U.S. American hyperscalers. Why? In Germany, 65% of public cloud providers are coming from cloud services are in the hands of three cloud providers. How much longer? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we can agree that this is not sustainable for the future, neither societally, nor economically, nor politically, and definitely not looking forward. I don't have to explain to you what's happening in the world out there. Why digital sovereignty is decisive for Europe and Germany. We urgently need independent digital infrastructure, our own standards, open source, and our own technology. Not to wall ourselves off from the rest of the world, but to be part of a fair, open, innovation-driven competition. Because of that, we consistently work for and support European solutions, including operability. And me personally, I trust in and count on people's the creativity of people and companies in Europe. That we won't just run after existing ideas that have been successful elsewhere, but can have our own ideas and put them into practice. And that requires creative and courageous people from all groups of society and all generations, especially young people, for a future that is value-based and moves technology forward in the interests of the people and democracy. Especially young people do that with purpose, with values, and with great passion and creativity to build this future. I have a very optimistic, positive view of that. We have these people in Germany and in Europe. For that, we need a rule of law, legal certainty. We have that. We have Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, but we need to further develop these laws and also implement them. We need politics, we need the state, we need Europe, but it really needs the people. It needs a clear goal, and it needs discussion and conversations. And at the end of the day, everything, it's all about implementation. We need to act, we need to do these things. And in Europe, we can do that, to have digital sovereignty based on our own values, and to build a promising digital future. But it also needs companies, established companies, small, medium companies, and the startups. And so our third focus is the economy. What I mean here is creating frameworks and prerequisites for example, for the chances provided by AI and the chances of digital business models for Europe and the world. My goal for founders who deal with data and AI, Germany needs to be an attractive option. And the two important areas of data protection and data safety remain core pillars of digital society. They're non-negotiable.
At the same time, data protection might not hinder innovation, and that's not a contradiction to me. And I'm convinced that only those who have power over technology can also control security and safety. That's why we have to speed up and focus on the technology. And we have to just try out, to be allowed to try out just technological business models. And it's important to me that startups and small and middle economies, as well as the established players, can use their energy on this, that they can focus on growth and innovation. And I'm sure that this is possible. But I really want to stress that one topic is really important: safety and security. Without that, there will be no acceptance for digitization, no future for digitization. In 2024, more than 70% of all critical infrastructure were attacked at least once, and they fell victim of a cyber attack. So we'll focus on security in one center of IT security of the state in my ministry, and that in cooperation with the Ministry of Information Security. It will be a central center, a central instance for this topic. And if we do it well, we must succeed in creating a digital future in the EU for 450 million people. I hope you will all agree that the opportunities of this digital future, where everyone participates, the opportunities of a future that's accepted by the people and society as a whole. Yes, the times are changing as fast as ever, as never before. And I'm certain, especially in these times, we can and have to be brave in the changes we discuss. That's why I'm here today. And we have to design bravely and just do and make, because the future lives from implementation. So based on these values, it's our task to design and create a digital future. What a task, what a privilege, what an opportunity for the country and the people. Thank you very much. If I can also count on all of you. Well, thank you very much for those words. We are a bit surprised how many of our main talking points you already mentioned, and we are happy if you will fulfill them in the coming years. Let's begin with a question. Can you imagine that we have democratic communication spaces that are not in the hands of tech billionaires? Well, I can imagine, and I'm wishing for it, that in the future we succeed in creating these spaces. So we create these spaces in Europe, and we have to see how the current development works with the fake news and all those critical areas. But I think the perspective has to be created by us. So I would wish for us to succeed in, based on our values, creating platforms that the people in the country do use. And I think that's necessary and a necessary task for us, how to handle this. But it's also a future task. And I believe also that there is an opportunity to create technology based on our value system. That means, for us, an opportunity to differentiate us, but that also needs a lot of people working on it, but we also have to convince the users to actually use it. That will take time, so we first have to find answers how to handle that. Do you believe that regulations of big tech is motivated enough already? Or is there more potential? Could they make it better? The EU Commission, for example. Well, there is a lot of stuff in the works, and I know that there are some interests that are conflicting. Personally, I think that a lot of values are not discussable, but we also have to really stress that the rule of law that we establish has to be fulfilled by the companies. But I also think that we are more brave already than we've been before, so I'm looking positively into the future. But we are only as strong as we are strong in technology, so we have to establish our capabilities and to evolve. So I would wish that we have a lot of young people who dare more and push forward. And my job will be to create a framework. The state is not the one to do it, but to create a framework. So I will use all my power to do that. So you offered and invited a lot of dialogue, but how can we imagine that? How will these discussions work? How will this dialogue work? Yeah, I also want to talk to groups. I think the goals, how the society should look like, we agree on that, but there is different roads to get there. But if there is critique, I want to listen and learn. Another example, we might have mentioned it once or twice. There are companies that are working on platforms that might be decentralized with open APIs. And I think that's really interesting. And I wonder, what do they need that at the end of the day, at some time, we have digital spaces for social exchange that scale well? I would like to understand that. Is there a framework we can set to help here? Because I think the goal is really understandable, and I'm really happy to help there. Yeah, we like to hear it. How do you use communication ways with your team? Do you have Signal, WhatsApp? Do you have a Signal group? Well, we are still building up everything. It's quite wild at the moment. What infrastructure do we use? But from day one, we have a website. That's impressive, right? But respect to the team that does it professionally. But of course, in the political area, you have to really consider security. So we really take care how to communicate. But personally, and also my colleagues are really digital, even privately. So in practice, you use WhatsApp? No. No. Unfortunately, I didn't make myself clear. We are phoning, so calling each other a lot and talk personally. That's also important in the digital era. And it's kind of like a startup atmosphere, so we come together and are tightly knit. And I hope it's secure enough. Okay, most of us only know e-government from the TV from other countries. What are your hopes that we will get all those promised services online? Well, the topic, how do we get the digital services to the to our population? It's difficult, and I know that those are the expectations of our people. I think currently, it's week 4. No one will accept or believe me that I have all the answers, and I don't have them. But we're working really specifically on the problems. So there are some principles that are already there. Some OZG services are already there. But now, how do we get those solutions? that are also requested. How do we get those established? And we have certain projects that are actually worked on. But the other question is a different one. If we look into other countries that do all these things more centrally and have everything designed more centrally with open standards and APIs, but we have to do more work on the system. And that will be another task. And I will do my best to not just promise stuff here, but how to do it well. You mentioned open source a lot, which I liked, but we heard all that before. So open source was something a lot of your predecessors really liked or were interested in, but then they bought Microsoft off the shelf again. So most of our administration uses Microsoft. So do you want to change that? Well, I think it's really important in our situation, and it's really important when you look at the world situation, that sovereignty is more important than ever before. And it's not a switch you can flip, but we have to shift our mindset. And I can assure you that all talks, also with more technical people from the ministry, are exactly about those topics: open standards, open source. And that's something when you're talking about architecture in our state, that's what we're addressing. And if a lot of people talked about it and everyone is not happy about it, then now is the time to do it. And let's look at it again in 1 to 2 years. Okay, best case now. In 3.5 years, there is election time again. What do you want to have achieved then already? Next election time. In 3.5 years, what would I wish to have achieved? Well, first of all, I would wish that digitization, well, it has to come from the people. We give the space and the opportunity, and young people, middle and companies and startups, but also the bigger ones, have to participate. We can talk about it, and we can build something and offer it, but not the state should build it, but people who know technology should build it. And I hope we can start a dynamic situation where the number of startups is way higher than now. We have great startups, by the way. We talk a lot about those other countries, but we should also mention what we already have. We have great universities. We have well-educated people who are really motivated. And we just have to improve the framework, and that's my standpoint. The second point is that, of course, the infrastructure has to happen quicker. That doesn't happen overnight, of course, but I'm optimistic that very, very soon we can announce something. And we're working on measures that we can actually put into reality, and obviously the digitization of administration. I hope that ideally all states agree, and we can start the wallet, our big project. And next point, personally, I really want to look at how does the technology of these central solution work. And we need to understand how would we use that in the construct that we are moving in. And that's something I imagine in 3.5 years. And in 3.5 years, I hopefully will continue to work on this. Well, we wish you good luck. We will be there. And thank you very much.